Hey guys, Saiyan here, bringing another Dragon Ball Z Dokkan battle video, and so we are carrying on with the end of 2023 unit review of the schedule here, going through and giving all of the releases of 2023 the thumbs up or thumbs down in terms of their reaction from the community, whether or not they were a W release or an L release. I have done the one for Dokkan Fest exclusives already. Check that out if you haven't seen it. We go through every Dokkan Fest exclusive released in 2023, be they LR or TUR, as long as they were red coin unit, they're on the list. So check that out. And today we will be going through the LRs that do not fall under that format, right? So no Dokkan Fest exclusive LRs. We will be looking at the yellow coin LRs and Carnival LRs that released during 2023. And I thought, since there's actually a lot less than I thought overall, I thought I would throw in the couple of free-to-play LRs that came out during the year as well. So there's not as many. Obviously, those units won't be judged as harshly because they're not premium summonable units that we're spending our currency to get. Although, of course, you know, for things like Prime Battle LRs, you're spending your time, especially with the 777 medal grind, right? So I thought we would include them. Why not? So just like the TUR one, just to break it down real quick, I'm going to go through each of the releases, discuss them very briefly, talk a little bit about how they were received by the community, what I think about them, if they've aged well or badly. And then, of course, we will give them an overall W or L rating, which will then be tallied up at the end. And as I said in the previous video as well, this is based on my general feeling on like the reaction from the community overall. Obviously, you might disagree and think that the unit was an L if I say W or W if I say L. And that's obviously up to you guys, but this is the overall consensus from the community. So let me know in the comments down below your thoughts on each of the releases, whether you think they were a W or an L, and give me your tally at the end. So we're going to jump straight in, starting off at the very beginning with the anniversary, just like we did with the TURs. So that gives us the first two LRs of the year, because again, just to be clear, we're going by the JP schedule since Global follows on from that. So some of these units are actually on the list. We probably won't. Some of them I think we don't have yet, but we'll get very soon. In fact, most of the LRs did release. I think there's only one or two actually we don't have. But this is going by the JP timeline. So starting off with the Carnival LRs from part 2 of the anniversary. That is the Goku and the Gohan. Now, this one is kind of interesting because I think for most people, for the community, we would all overwhelmingly agree that the Goku was a W. Like, he's really good, worked really well in the meta at the time, very good in all the events. But the Gohan is kind of a little bit more divisive because I feel like in terms of his release, overall, he was a W. A lot of people liked his animations and stuff, but the general consensus of the community was that he just wasn't really that hype. So whilst I don't think it necessarily constitutes being an L release, he just kind of was a release that was just there. I remember all the people talking about it at the time, like Truth and Nano, like we're all saying that, you know, all of their Gohan videos got way less views than any of the other videos during the anniversary. I saw the same thing when it came to Global as well. Which is really a shame because this Gohan is actually really, really good. And obviously for Global, we haven't had either of these units return yet. So for me, I only got both of these units at 55%. And unfortunately, as the meta has moved on and we've got like the Dismal Future Red Zone and stuff like that, having these guys both at 55%, they're not quite good enough, right, for some of these events. But both of them are very strong. Gohan is definitely a very good unit that I feel like gets massively underrated. So I feel like he is going to belong in the W release column just because I think L release is a bit too harsh for him because, you know, he's the unit that represents the Z intro. This guy, of course, representing the Kai intro. People really liked this unit in terms of the animations, the nostalgia, the OST, all that kind of stuff. So I feels wrong to put him in L release, but I know there were a lot of people that just really didn't care about this unit, which is a little bit unfortunate. So moving on from him, the next LR release that we got, of course, was still part of the anniversary. It was this guy. Technically, I think he was out before the part 2 LRs, but he didn't have his Easy A yet. So of course, every anniversary we get a free-to-play LR that gets awakened up throughout the course of the anniversary and then gets an Easy A. This guy's kind of hard to place as well because as a unit, he's kind of decent, right? You can put him on extreme class teams. He gives support. He has dodge, and then of course he has a standby because the anniversary free-to-play LR always has the new mechanic of the anniversary. So he has the standby where he standbys into Majin Vegeta. Now, the thing that makes this interesting is his standby, like the art's really cool, the animation is really cool. Of course, the actual Majin Vegeta animation you only get if the standby isn't fully charged. But a lot of people were actually disappointed that they used this Majin Vegeta moment on the standby of a free-to-play card, because like it's something we would like to see as a summonable card in the future. Now, I don't know whether that would constitute this being an L release, because of course, you know, they've already, you know, they reuse assets, they reuse moments from the show in other units, and there's no reason why we couldn't get a premium summonable Majin Vegeta just because they've used that unit here. Doesn't mean they can't use it on another unit as well. I mean, we got a Dokkan Fest Majin Vegeta for Saiyan Day a couple of years back, so we're probably not going to see one for a little while. But when we do next see a summonable Majin Vegeta, I feel like there's no reason why he couldn't have this moment as part of the card, especially if it's an LR, right? This could be one of the super attacks. But overall, I think it's a little bit interesting to try and rate this guy. I feel like he was a W release just because on release he was very, very useful. Like I think last year for the anniversary before this was when we got the Gohan, Goten, and Trunks riding Shenron, and that unit was pretty much useless on release, whereas this guy actually pretty decent. And considering we're going to take whatever we can get when it comes to extreme class units, so I'm going to put him in W. Next up, the next LR released was the AGL Super Buu. Now, this one, it honestly pains me to do so, but I feel like in terms of the general consensus of the community, this guy has to go into the L release slot because he released as the Part 2 LR for Dokkan Fest Kale, so he did not give her any support or any buffs or any help at all, which of course is one of the reasons why in that video we discussed her not getting any help on release is one of the reasons why she went into the L column. And this guy kind of suffered from the same thing, right? He released, I mean, crazy. I don't know if anyone did work out at the time how many premium units had released like that in the last like 6 months or so. But this guy released with no 200% leader, which was crazy. And obviously teams that he was on, like Majin Buu Saga, Majin Power, a lot of those units were really outdated at the time that he came out already. Now, the funny thing is, and this is why it pains me to put him in the L category, is even with only a 170 lead, this guy like Rainbow Link level 10 was still shooting out like 16 million attack stat AoEs on turn 1, which was awesome. It's just he didn't have a team to be run on, which is very strange. It's only really now at the end of the year. I feel like he's a really awesome choice for the Majin 21 team, or the AGL Android 21. She gives him a 200% lead. She's very, very good. Her team's fun. Like, he kind of gets to shine on that team a little bit. I've had runs on that team where he's getting like, you know, 20 mil slot 1, and it's just crazy. So when we get a new proper like Buu character who's a 200% lead for all the other Buus, you know, we get like the physical LR Buu Easy A. This guy will definitely have his chance to shine, and even now people are seeing the better side of him. But because this is based on the releases and how people felt at the time, sadly our boy has to go into the L release column. So, you know, I like you, Super Buu. You're definitely people are seeing you how good you are now, but sadly, the L release column is where he shall go. So next up, we have the LR Bulma, who was the part 2, of course, of the Golden Week with 23rd World Tournament Goku and Piccolo Jr. I mean, how much do I really need to say in this segment? I mean, obviously W, for the longest time, considered to be the best unit in the game, still is a contender for best unit in the game. Most people either think her, Piccolo, or potentially even future Gohan are the best unit in the game still, even now. And so that is over 6 months after her release. You know, 7 months coming on 8 now. She's considered the best one, like the best unit in the game still, potentially. A unit that you run on every single team that she can go on. There's literally no reason not to run her. People were even running her off leader skill when she first came out, and she was still good enough for that. So you honestly cannot get more of a W release than Bulma. You know, even with how badly extreme teams and units are treated these days, it's almost become a meme now that we talk about when extreme units come out, like, or are going to be coming out. We need the extreme version of Bulma because she's just that good for all of these teams. So Bulma, absolute W release. Don't really need to say much more than that. She firmly goes into the W column. So after Bulma, the next LR that released that was Yellow Coin or Carnival or free-to-play was Wheelo, a free-to-play Prime Battle unit. Now, strangely enough, I wasn't too sure on this one. I checked with some of the guys in the group chat because, like, Wheelo brought with him a ton of memes. People finally got Wheelo in the game, which had been a Dokkan meme for ages. And he's honestly not that bad. Like, his animations are pretty cool. He has an entrance animation. He's got some decent super attack effects. Like, I've actually been able to use him in some difficult content. He needs a better team, really. Revenge is a category that absolutely needs a lot of work. But I think in terms of his release and what people felt about him at the time, funnily enough, he is actually a W release. Now, we could get into the details about Prime Battle LRs in general and how, you know, having to go through all of the, you know, the grind of farming those 777 medals is a huge pain, but, you know, something you can spread out over time. And this unit is kind of fun, and he did bring a lot of memes, so he gets to go in the W column. Like we said, free-to-play units do get judged a little bit less harshly in terms of their release value because they're not units you have to pay for in any way, shape or form, like I said, outside of potentially time. So I think Wheelo is going to go in W release. If you disagree, I probably wouldn't fight against it too hard, but yeah, he is in the W release column for now. Shout out to the boy Wheelo. So then we have an actual summonable LR. This guy, the Part 2 LR for Dokkan Fest Turles. The LR base Goku, otherwise often known as Triku, the Tree of Might, Spirit Bomb Goku. Now this guy, he goes firmly in the L release column for a couple of reasons. So he's a solid unit. He can get relatively decent base defense. He can do a pretty, you know, decent attack stat. But essentially that's all he does, right? He does one big attack stat. He doesn't have like built-in crits, which for a unit who is essentially just doing one big super is very disappointing. He's a base Goku, which obviously we saw multiple releases of during the year, which I think people were very disappointed with as well. And of course, there's not a lot of content. They've released a bunch of those things that are like punching bag events and stuff like that. But there wasn't a huge amount of content where it's really necessary to have an AoE character. He also has the finishing blow mechanic, which is a mechanic that people really don't like. So this guy just had almost everything working against him. It was kind of obvious he would be the Part 2 LR to go with a new Turles, but again, Dokkan continues this pattern of bringing out Part 2 LRs that don't really help the Part 1 release. It would have been much better with like the leader skill that Turles had for this guy to be an extreme unit that would be on Turles' team. I forget his exact leader skill now without looking it up, but things like a Lord Slug or anything like some kind of extreme LR release that would have been on Turles' team would have been so beneficial for Turles and maybe even pushed him into the W release column, like when we did the TURs video. So Goku just goes firmly in the L release column. Like I said, there's been some events come out recently where having AoE units is helpful, but it's not like there aren't any other ones in the game and you need to have this guy, right? So sadly, he is an L release. Next up, we have the Carnival LR Omega Shenron. Well, guess where this guy goes? So firmly in the L release column. He is a unit that, in a vacuum, if we look at what he does, he's actually pretty good. The only problem is you can only really use him on the GT boss's team. He's good when he's on that team, but the rest of that team is absolute garbage. You know, the only thing I would say, which I don't think it would be fair to do that, you could almost argue he could be in W release because his release sees the addition of the Omega stage to the Shadow Dragons event to the game, but I feel like that would be too unfair to factor that into whether or not he was a good release or not. So he is absolutely in the L column. Good old LR Omega Shenron, still not out on Global, probably coming out in the later part of January, and will be an easy skip for sure. Sad because, you know, we wanted an LR Omega for so long. It's kind of funny that we memed for all this time about getting an LR Omega and Kid Buu. That's what people expected for the anniversary before we got the Kai Goku and the Z Gohan. And then we finally got an LR Omega Shenron, and it was an incredibly disappointing release. So you hate to see it. But yeah, Omega Shenron in the L column. Like I say, he's good in a vacuum, but you've got to use him on a team that is just absolutely terrible. So until GT bosses get some more buffs, like they could have made this category something else. I mean, Omega doesn't have the best categories, but like transformation boost, power absorption, like think about how good power absorption can be now with the new Dokkan Fest 21 and stuff like that. Like he could have been so much better if he wasn't stuck on the GT bosses team. And of course he's a Carnival LR for 200% lead, and it's for GT bosses, so it's just such a shame. And hopefully when the meme dies and LR Kid Buu actually finally comes into existence, he won't go the route of Omega Shenron. So next up, we have the Worldwide Celebration Part 2 Carnival LRs, Future Trunks and Future Gohan. Well, I should say Sword of Hope Trunks, because it is Future Trunks, but Sword of Hope Trunks and Future Gohan. These two both firmly in the W column. Now, it's kind of funny because you could almost argue that Future Gohan has points for being in the L column because so many people wanted one of the Part 2 LRs to be a Goku Black, whether it be a base form or a Rosé. But like as soon as we saw his details and just how good he was and his animations with the Dokkan original active skill with Piccolo and Goku, it's just so good. I love this unit. They managed to make me hyped to summon for this character, and I am not someone who cares about Future Gohan, like at all. He's got the domain, which is really, really good. Like the unit himself is just incredible, and he is a good example. I think he turned the tide of public opinion. I mean, there still will be those people that are salty and they will dislike his release because it wasn't a Goku Black, but he absolutely is one of those units that turned the tide and is the example that we talk about a lot in the community. We talk about it on the podcast and stuff, where even if a character is not necessarily hype or not necessarily someone's favorite character, if you make their kit super good, people will be excited to summon for them. And that was me with Future Gohan. He's very, very good. And then Sword of Hope Trunks, at the time during the Worldwide Celebration, I was among one of many people that considered him to be the worst of the 4 LRs from the Worldwide Celebration. But as time has gone on, I feel like his value has definitely increased with the release of the 200% Super Saiyans Carnival LR for Christmas. He's gotten a new very powerful team that he's one of the best units on. And his only real drawback is that he's RNG related with his defense, right? If you get one super and then a bunch of normals, he doesn't build up damage reduction as much as you would like, and he can get killed by a super. But if he does super a bunch of times, he can be really good defensively. And of course, he does have the standby with the Sword of Hope, which is very, very good, very strong defensively. The active skill can be quite powerful. I will still forever hate the animation. I think the end of the Spirit Sword part is super anticlimactic, which I guess for some people does make him an L release, but overall, very, very strong. I think, like, even if you're not particularly happy about certain aspects of any of the 4 LRs, including the 2 Dokkan Fest ones that we talked about yesterday, the 4 LRs that came out during the Worldwide Celebration, I think were all definitely Ws. Even if some of them had some points against them, I think they were all W releases. So Trunks and Gohan going in the W release column. Next up, after the Worldwide Celebration, we had the release, in terms of the LR releases, of course, after the Worldwide Celebration, we got the LR Ren Trio, Ren, Cocoonsa, and Rosie. These guys came out as the Part 2 LR for the Int LR Android 17 and 18. Again, this is one that I couldn't really remember the reaction overall from the community. I know it's always like a meme, like people thought it was hilarious that they were getting an LR, but then at the same time I know a lot of people were not particularly happy that they were getting an LR when it could have been something like, you know, you think about the Int Androids coming out in Part 1, and again, we're going to revisit something I've said many times with Dokkan following this trend of not giving the best help to these units, is they bring out the Int Androids, who are based around the Tournament of Power and the Universe 7 team. They give them this Goku restriction, and then they bring out this Part 2 LR that could have been, you know, this could have been like a new UI Goku, or a new Blue Kaioken Goku, or Super Saiyan Blue Goku, who knows, right? So a new Goku of some kind. And then that would have been a great buff for the androids. Or even if you're deciding, well, you know what, we're just actually going to make them another unit from the Tournament of Power, but we're not going to make them a Universe 7 character, or, you know, we're not going to make them a Goku. why not make them a Caulifla or a Kefla so that Kale finally gets that buff that she needs? But instead, they made the Ren Trio. They're not terrible as a unit, but they're not like super crazy game breaking. They didn't come out and you know, just like we were saying now about Future Gohan, they didn't come out and then their kit was so good people were like, oh well, you know, even though this is a Ren LR, I still really want to summon for them. So this was also the banner, I believe, that on JP introduced the pity system, which obviously for global, for yellow coin pity stuff, it was the Triku. But yeah, these guys, sadly for you Ren fans out there, in the L column. But you know, we've had a string of W's, so not too bad. And Ren Trio, can't wait for them to come out on global, boys. So the next release after them was the new World Tournament LR, the Pilaf gang, Pilaf, Shu and Mai. Funnily enough, these guys, as a free-to-play World Tournament LR, these guys largely recognized as a W in the community. Again, I consulted for some feedback on this one. People were very happy with them overall, just as the choice. The OST is definitely pretty funky. The unit is pretty good, considering they are a free-to-play, like, World Tournament reward card. So again, we won't judge them as harshly as some of the other LRs. But their kit is pretty good. They're just a fun unit to run, you know. Obviously, with them being a World Tournament LR, people aren't going to have them rainbowed for a while, right, until they've been out in enough World Tournaments. But they are essentially just a fun free-to-play unit. Nothing too crazy, but I think we can firmly put them in the W column as a nice little free-to-play unit. And then speaking of nice little free-to-play units, we have one of the most unexpected releases, I think. I mean, obviously, by the time we got the TUR, it wasn't unexpected, but one of the most unexpected releases, if you talk to a player of Dokkan at the beginning of 2023, a free-to-play LR Trunks and Broly based around the story of Dokkan, the Dokkan Quest Mode story. This is a massive W release for a number of reasons. Firstly, the unit is actually quite good. With the release of the Super Saiyans 200% team, they're a really good unit for that team. They essentially can operate as a floating orb changer, which that team benefits from a lot. The unit is cool, the animations are cool, the OST is cool, and just the fact that it is a Dokkan original like unit essentially is very, very awesome. A free-to-play unit that everybody can farm up, get to Rainbow. They also have their own farmable skill orbs as well, so they can be at their peak without you having to worry about like getting results from Chain Battle, which of course is going away now, but getting the results of Chain Battle to get good gear. It might be annoying for the grind until you get the perfect bits of gear that you want, but this unit can be at their max potential, fully free to play for everyone, and they are a good unit, and they are certainly an interesting and fun unit. So this absolutely is a massive W release for the game, and hopefully they continue to do more stuff like this in the future. As we've seen Dokkan original animations, now we have these guys. Hopefully we continue to get more stuff like this going forward. So absolute W release. And then finally, the last LR that has released, because the New Year's celebration currently going on JP, it's not going to have a Part 2 LR, or if it does, which, you know, that celebration doesn't usually, but even if it does, it's not going to come out till next year now anyway. So the final LR to release for the year is the LR Super Saiyan Trio from the Android 13 movie, and I think most people would agree that this goes into the W column as well. This is a release that a lot of people actually did predict. Obviously, they put out a teaser, which sort of gave it away. But people had wanted to see this unit. Very cool to have a Super Saiyan's 200% lead. Very good choice for a Carnival LR leader skill, because we've seen some duff like picks in the past. I mean, we literally talked about Omega Shenron with GT bosses. We've seen some Carnival LRs not have the best categories, but these guys definitely a very solid release. Their animations are all fantastic. I think they look awesome. The arts are all good. And they are a very good unit, definitely in contention for being one of the best LRs. I think at my recent top 10 LRs on global list, they did make the top 5, I think. So very, very good release, definitely a W. And that is going to be the final LR release of the year. This is what, the 6th? So 6 Carnival LRs came out this year, right? The Dual Dokkan Fest for the anniversary, Dual Dokkan Fest, well, I say Dokkan Fest, but Dual Carnival for the anniversary, Dual Carnival for the worldwide celebration, Omega, which is obviously technically part of the Tanabata, and then this guy, or these guys, I should say, for Christmas. So, yeah, Very, very solid one to end us up here, and let's go ahead and count up the tally. So with tallying up all of the results, as we've just gone through the video, we have 10 Ws and 4 Ls. So 14 LRs released during 2023, new LRs, not counting Easy A's, because Easy A's will be a separate video. 14 LRs released, 10 of them were considered Ws, 4 of them considered Ls. So again, very much like in a similar vein to the TUR situation, we are looking at just over 2/3 of the releases being considered Ws and 1/3 being considered Ls. Now overall, in the grand scheme of releases for a whole year, I would say that that is pretty decent, right? So not too bad overall. We had, of course, the Ws being the anniversary LRs, with the free-to-play included. L for Super Boo, Bulma was a W, Wheelo was a W, Triku the L, Carnival Omega the L. Then we have the Worldwide Celebration LRs were a W, Ribrienne was an L, and then Pilaf Gang, Broly and Trunks, and then the Super Saiyans were all Ws. So 10 versus 4 at the very end. So I would say overall pretty good. Like I said, for the TURs, if you disagree with any of these specifically, whether you think one of them that I said was a W was an L and vice versa, let me know all your thoughts down below in the comment section. I think the total should still end up hopefully more skewed towards 2/3 good, 1/3 bad. So I think that is still overall pretty decent. I'm sure we would like it to be more. Like, ideally we want no L releases, of course, but you know, if we move more towards the sort of 3/4 and 1/4, I guess that would be nice as well. But at least the majority were Ws. And I think one of the reasons why I did this series is it's kind of interesting. You will see people being negative on the timeline. It pretty much happens every year, right? And people will say, oh, the majority of releases this year were disappointing or whatever. But as we've gone through the TURs and now the LRs, we can see that the majority, at least overall, based on what I saw from the community, with a little bit of my own opinion in there as well, I think the majority have been good, with obviously some bad apples in there. But let me know what you guys think down below in the comments section. Like I said, if you want to list out all 14 and whether you think they were a W or an L, and then give your total at the end, be interesting to see what you guys think down below in the comments section. So that is going to be it for the video, guys. This has been the Masked Ningen. Smash that like button, subscribe to the channel if you are new. Check out the links down below for the Discord and the merch store, and I will see you all again soon. Have a good one.